Hey, thanks for listening to Everyday Greatness. It's a nice little show brought to you by our major sponsor, ARA Group, an employee-owned company that provides essential services for your facility and infrastructure and is one of Australia's biggest supporters of community projects. Everyday greatness isn't rocket science. We're just trying to make you feel proud again of simply being a good, solid human being by speaking to some real people who found that the strength they needed to deal with any challenge in their life had been inside them the whole time. The ARA Group is proud to stand alongside Everyday Greatness, and we all hope that you enjoy the show.
Simply trying your hardest and being proud of yourself these days doesn't seem like it's enough to be proud of the life you're living. But our next guest on Everyday Greatness, AIRLIE Dodds, is proving that is more than enough to be proud of the life you're living today. AIRLIE is just giving life the best crack she can. An incredible human being, AIRLIE has done some really cool things. She starred in several films as an actress, and she's even given stand-up comedy a crack. But AIRLIE travelled the hard road to get to where she is today. The intense competition and pressure to be perfect as an actress has been hard to cope with. For any person who especially for a person who just wants to be a good, solid human being and give a bit of kindness back to the world. But those struggles haven't been enough to stop AIRLIE altogether. She's still taking life on and doing it by just trying to be a flat-out nice person. In a world that needs trophies, credits, or starring roles to think they're successful, AIRLIE takes pride in just adding small goodness to the world every day. She's a loving daughter, a good sister and friend, and a proud advocate for women in the arts. AIRLIE is just focusing on the game plan and having faith the result will take care of itself. Being in the acting spotlight hasn't been easy though. AIRLIE's faced challenges all along the way. But by overcoming those challenges, AIRLIE has found all the strength she needed had been inside her the whole time. And she's doing it all bloody well. AIRLIE may have no idea what the result might be, but she's continuing to try her hardest and be proud of herself. And is just a nice human being. And it gives me all the pleasure in the world to say that AIRLIE Dodds joins me now on Everyday Greatness. AIRLIE, thank you for joining me.
Oh, thank you for having me, Barnes. It's a privilege to be here and talk to you as well. I love you.
Oh, stop it. So you have tried stand-up comedy to help raise money for the Chris O'Brien Lifehouse Cancer Treatment Centre. Did you think you were funny?
No, I didn't think I was very funny and I didn't particularly want to do it, but you were sort of relentless in your pursuit. And then I think I said no and someone else dropped out. And so I just sort of did it at the last minute. No, I didn't think I was funny, but a lot of friends have said that I'm not funny, but funny as in it's not automatically obvious what I'm about to say in certain social situations, like sometimes not even to me because I can talk really quickly. So I thought I was kind of sort of funny, but I did have fun. So that's positive.
That is good to hear. Let me ask you a question about acting, the acting world. When people say they've made it as an actor, what does that mean? Where have they made it to?
I don't know, like I can't speak for everyone, but I think it probably speaks to a sense of realizing like an inner personal ambition of, and this is sort of like a tricky definition to go off, but like becoming someone or becoming something through your actions, which I think maybe in like a tangible sense it means you like that's your trade and you make money through being an actor full time, and you do projects that you can choose and that you're connected to, and that bring you, a deep sense of fulfillment. But also I think there's a sort of definition that you've become someone, which could negate the fact that you already are someone. So I think it's kind of a funny like catch-22, like, do you know what I mean?
I do know what you mean, and like everything else in the artistic world, it's a very odd thing. So do you feel like you have made it?
God, no, I think I read this quote once that it takes 10 years to make an actor. And I didn't really know what that meant at the time. I thought it was sort of like technical, like prowess and sort of, but I actually think I probably like made it through the rejection aspect. So it's taken 10 years to sort of like will me into understanding that like that's the way it is. Because I did this play when I was like 16 and I was still in school and it was like at the Sydney Theatre Company. And it was just like an open audition and I ended up getting it and then I got an agent. And I remember thinking when I was 16, like very naively, like, oh, this is great. I'll just do these plays for the rest of my life and, you know, like have a great time, thinking that that would be how it would be. And it was kind of, you know, grossly distorted from that, like I would say. But it's still been, I feel like I've more or less sort of realised that it's my trajectory and stopped thinking that it's something that will happen to me, more something that I love doing and that will do and will pursue because it's sort of like a deeper passion than like an extrinsic result, although that is like important.
That does sound very deep. That sounds like
Thank
life
you.
in general. Like people think that to get life, to be comfortable with who you are in life, you can just think differently tomorrow than how you were today and be someone else. But it's exactly the same as being an actor. It takes you 10 years just to try and fail and struggle. And
And particularly when you can have successes, you think that that will change who you are. But like just like in life, wherever you go, there you are. You're still the same person. You still have the same flaws and setbacks. You still have the same insecurities. It's just, I think it's similar to life. It's more a process of becoming comfortable with those insecurities and who you are rather than looking outwardly for people to affirm or say you're this amazing person because that's not real or right or isn't going to help you warm to yourself, which I do think life is about, you know.
you're a very wise person, AIRLIE Dodds.
Oh, thank you. Oh, thank you.
One of the things you're working on your trajectory right now is a project for McGowan Films. Tell me about that one. What's that all about?
It is I was living with a friend of mine who is a comedic actress and she makes her own work. And then she had a meeting with McGowan Films about some ideas and I had this idea while I was running one day. It just sort of popped into my head and I think in that meeting that idea came up and so she sold that and then kindly kind of because I wasn't doing anything, like it was COVID and I had kind of landed on like the skin of my ass really, like I had this sort of scaffold in my life really where I was like going to like 3 auditions a week and like my whole life was sort of contingent on the fact that I would kind of get something and then I would stop like waitressing and like all my troubles would kind of eviscerate and then COVID happened. So, and then for 2 years it was like, well, that's not happening either. So what are you going to do? And I don't think I really had any proper interests outside acting. You know, everything that I was doing was kind of in support of that aim. So it was in a lot of ways, it was a very interesting time for me to sort of evaluate where I was going. And it was really hard. Like, to be honest, I was very depressed. I was out of sorts. I had to really restructure things. But anyway, I was running and I had this idea and, you know, she ended up fortuitously kind of saying that and then it got sold and then she asked for my help. And so since then, I've sort of found a new way and it is sort of grueling. It's very relenting. Like we're just sitting in a room, banging our heads against the wall, trying to come up with sort of a TV series just with one other person. And so it's mercilessly hard on your ego because you can get things so wrong and right. But we've just been sort of bashing out this idea. Essentially, I don't want to go into it too much, but it's sort of about an individual triumphing in like a conformist environment. And it's a sort of but the show itself is, it's sort of interrogating the fear around female desire and sexuality through kind of like thriller and crime. So yeah, so is that too much? That's sort of a good that's like intriguing enough.
Little
I think.
teaser,
So I'll leave it at that.
Is there
So I'll leave it at
anything?
that.
A lot of people listen to this and wonder what the hell it is and where they can see it and what it's called. Have you got any details, or is it still a bit too embryonic?
I think it's still very developmental, but I think it's a 6-part, 30-minute show, and I think the idea is like to pitch it to like a streaming platform.
Right.
So
when you have more details, I'll get you back on and you can give it a massive plug.
Okay, all right, sounds good. I'll do that.
So, AIRLIE, you've worked in the acting world for quite a long while now and met a lot of people along the way, including Cate Blanchett. Who do you admire as people that the world see as celebrities, people that they feel like they know? Who do you admire as just flat out good human beings that you've met along the way?
I kind of struggled a little bit with this question because I think actors are meant to be kind of shapeshifters and not too much like political figures.
Right.
But I do, there are people kind of more broadly speaking that have sort of struck me, maybe just in terms of their like personal constitution, I think, and sort of bringing something quite authentic to the world and actually kind of standing for something. And so I had this fascination when I was younger for Orson Welles. He was a director and an actor. Mm-hmm. And he was just like a very brilliant conversationalist and seemed to have like this very deep, vibrant and kind of spontaneous sense of humanity. He has this interview with Michael Parkinson, which I think I've watched like 30 times. It's just so off the cuff and kind of tender, and I think he observes people really brilliantly.
Right.
But I also loved Amy Winehouse. I thought she was really truthful about herself. Yep. I love Paddy Mills. I think what he's done with basketball is just incredible, and also his skill and determination, and particularly as a not very kind of tall player, his teamwork and the way he seems like quite connected to the game and wants to do things with the game. I find that really interesting. Robin Williams, Peter Weir, who was a director, he directed Dead Poets Society, Master and Commander, Witness, Gallipoli, and Picnic at Hanging Rock. I think he was incredible just in terms of like a young Australian director who kind of came in and started making films that had these big notions about humanity, but the smaller scenes in his films, they're so intimate and like say a lot about who we are as people. And I would be remiss if I didn't talk about my parents, who are very they're quite like cerebral people, and they're quite I think they're both eccentric people, kind of offbeat in a way, but they do, every time they like encounter someone, even if it's like someone in the shop or in the streets, I believe that they give them like their full attention. And I think when I was a kid, that really rubbed off on me to really focus on someone and give them your time and sort of be present with them and sort of I don't know, just I think they both kind of draw people out in really interesting ways and want and notice things in interesting ways. And so, I think I really admire them.
Very true. Cerebral is a very politically correct word to say for them. Hello, Joy and David. So
my dad.
You mentioned that actors are shapeshifters. Can you take us behind the curtain to a certain extent, pardon the pun? Can actors just be nice people and get ahead?
I don't think people can be nice people and get ahead. I think life is a combination of skill, timing, and luck. I think there are people who, like in every industry, people like working with people who they like. People like working with people who they feel are kind of similar to them.
Yep.
And sometimes that results in lots of people working together and doing things, but it's such a subjective career. But in another sense, of course it doesn't hurt to, just like in life, be nice, be on time, not throw your weight around, invest yourself in work. It's interesting you said the word nice. I've always thought nice and kind are two very different things. I think nice people are kind of pleasant, kind of don't really rock the boat too much, but they're kind of agreeable and sweet in a way. But I always thought that kindness is kind of really thinking about how you want things done based on everyone involved, and kind of, I think it's kind of a deeper word. I don't know. I've always thought that. But yeah, I mean, to answer your question, I think it can take you so far, but you do have to have, whether it's with the director or with the part, something ineffable and kind of magic that you can't really speak or say about, that draws you into either that person or that character. That it's something so unsaid that, yeah, you need to have that affinity with either the director or something on the page, like with like with Robin Williams in Good Will Hunting, like the psychiatrist. He has that depth of humanity and kind of warmth, so much so that a young boy with like a really traumatic past feels like he can trust him. You know, you have to have that something other for it to kind of for the character to kind of illuminate, I think. So I would say that.
That's a very good answer, and you say it very well.
So thank you.
In saying all of that, does that mean that being an intrinsically good person is a waste of time? Does it get in the way of finding extrinsic success?
No, I don't think it's a waste of time, because anything, and when I was younger, I sort of, just even in my life, I sort of probably did shitty things, and you anything negative that you do, you have to wear and make sense of, and anything positive or sort of good-natured or sort of from the better part of you that you do and impart onto the world. I know it sounds like susical and very soppy, but it will rub off on you and others. Anything negative or bitter, you know, like I think when I was younger, I sort of was quite what's the word, like questioning of why certain things didn't come to me, or kind of comparative about other people. And I had to wear that energy, which I think is quite repellent. You know, you really, I think the older you get, the more you sort of get to know yourself and know that you can only do what you can. So no, I don't think it's a waste of time. I think it's one of the most valuable things you can do, because at the end of the day, regardless of how well you do or how people see you, all you can be really reflective of is the things that are in your control. And if you do good things, you'll have a positive regard for yourself, which is which is quite a weapon in terms of going after what you want and feeling like you deserve things.
Again, very well said, AIRLIE.
Oh, thank you.
So let me ask you a bit about competition in auditions in acting scenarios. How intensely competitive are those auditions? Are they as bad as the rumours make them out to be?
No, they're not bad. What's bad and horrible is the silence around your work. And it's not like in the movies. You don't go in and there's not, you know, some tall, blonde, beautiful girl who's like, hey, you know, they're not like, or like, hey, good luck in there. You know, I hope you have like an amazing, you know, like scowlingly or anything like that. It's not like that. You go in and you submit your work, and it's actually the silence and void around whether you're meant to do this really, you know, if you look at the odds and stuff like that, this kind of stupefying thing. And it's sometimes you can get really positive feedback for a really long time, but no like conversion, you know. Like if you think of like a rugby game, like you can be a really talented side, but you're not harnessing you're not converting, you're not doing anything. And so the silence and the void of it and the isolation of it, which was particular in COVID, can be really trying. And you can start conceiving of things about yourself that, you know, like that you couldn't possibly, you know, it's because I'm this, it's because I'm that, you know, which aren't. There are so many variables in someone picking why, again, as to what I said back, you know, talking about like Good Will Hunting or something like that, it's something ineffable sometimes, or sometimes it's something political, or sometimes it's something just so subjective. But whatever it is, it's so out of your command. And that's a really difficult thing for a young person to grasp. I think elderly people grasp it better because so much stuff happens to them in life that they learn to let go. But I wouldn't say they were. I wouldn't say they were intense. It is competitive, a competitive industry, but I don't think it's sort of like scathing. Like kill or be killed. Or I've never had situations like that. To answer your question.
That's very interesting. I thought it was just like you were saying, like the real bitchy blonde hair. I hope you
Maybe
go well
in
thing.
America, maybe sort of like but no, I haven't. I've had like sort of been on sets where it's been clear that one person is sort of dissatisfied with what they've been given and kind of doing strange things to kind of accrue more attention or shots and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But back to what I was saying, that behavior really mocks the individual who's doing it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's so obvious, so it really is good to just do what you're asked to do when you're asked to do it and not much more unless you really have some brilliant idea, which you can only suggest,
right.
Yeah.
I must say, just going back to the start of your comments there, I love the use of the rugby game metaphor.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I'm
metaphor.
going to the rugby tonight, so I'm very much in the zone of thinking like that. I'm very excited to see Australia hopefully beat England.
Go you Wallabies. So you're still giving life the best crack you can, AIRLIE. What are you up to these days?
I'm writing the show. I'm doing voiceovers. I would love to make my own film one day, and I'm still auditioning. So I'm auditioning for things in the UK and here. And so, yes, I haven't had a job since 2019, like a proper job. So, yeah, I still need to convert. But in the meantime, I don't think that COVID period where I was kind of down and out was really bad for me. I think it was actually very good for me. I'm quite an anxious person. So in terms of like, that was like, obviously like I'm a very privileged person, but that was like the worst thing that I thought could happen. And I survived and I'm still here and I'm, quite happy to this day. So
was that a very, sorry to interrupt, was that a very thinly veiled plug? Do you want employers to give you a call?
No, that's so terrible. No, I wouldn't think that. You just asked me what I was up to and then you were like saying like, people like, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. And then I just didn't want to be dishonest. Yeah.
Fair
I'm
enough.
not doing anything.
Authentic.
I'm doing voiceovers. I'm doing voiceovers for NIB and Airwick and Bird's Eye, I think. So those are my crazy plugs for you.
Well, they are much better companies for having your involvement.
Okay.
So what kind of challenges have you confronted because of the pressure to succeed in your acting career, and especially when you were struggling during COVID?
Yes. So yeah, I don't really talk about this too much, but when I had some early success, and that was really, really terrific and kind of emancipating for me. Like it was very exciting, being young and working and dealing with adults and still being in school and having a relatively firm trajectory. I think leaving school is all about finding grey areas and, confronting more or less the ambiguity of life. And so I was kind of protected against that. But I was working quite hard and I really wanted it to happen. And I think there were sort of other variables in my life, but I think in a response to the rejection, I didn't really know how to metabolize it, I couldn't really confront the rejection head on. I was and still am to this day, I was very, very sensitive and I don't think I could really handle it. So maybe I developed a sort of an eating disorder more or less to, like I'm looking back on this kind of reflectively, and I would speak about this sensitively because it's a very rampant issue. But I think I dealt with it to bolster my ego and anesthetize my insane nerves, I thought. And I think I developed ideas that if I was a certain weight or looked a certain way, that I might get ahead. And I really regret those decisions, I think I was trying to make a sense of a lot, really, really young.
Yeah.
And it was sort of a negative technique of processing the shame of losing all the time. I just felt like I was losing all the time, and it was really hard. And I didn't have, I think financially it's a very tough industry, and I just felt, particularly when people my age were kind of going off to uni and traveling and really starting to establish their lives, I think I sort of turned to it in a way to kind of, and it was sort of this voice that was telling me through like limiting my food intake that I wasn't losing,
Right.
and so it put me way, way, way out of touch with my friends and myself, and I think my family to a certain degree.
Yeah.
And so I think it was only when I started to confront that I started to get back in touch with myself and why I really wanted it, like talking about sort of like, yeah, just a shift from extrinsic success to what it actually, sorry, I'm being very soppy now, but how it actually fed me in terms of my nature and kind of how it fed my soul versus what I wanted and how I wanted other people to see me. I was just so young and so insecure, and I didn't have any dialogue with myself around it. I think being an actor is about being any type of artist, I think, is about being, and my best friend told me this, she said it's about being really, really sensitive with yourself when you have to be, and really, really hard and accountable with yourself when you also have to be, like it was hard, and I didn't really know who I was. So that was a massive challenge for me. And it was sort of largely self-imposed. I think the pressure, particularly, I would say both sexes now, like if you look on social media, but the pressures of aesthetic on young people are so, what's the word? Not insidious, but kind of, it just feels like it's getting into everything. And I was very, very impressionable to that young, and I don't think it's an easy thing to get over either. It takes work. You have to shift like ingrained mental pathways to overcome an eating disorder. It's really, really difficult, and it's not as simple as being thin. It's about emotional deprivation and a lack of compassion towards yourself. And so I really struggled, particularly when I was trying to get better, because I was refeeding myself, and I was, feeling fuller, but I wasn't necessarily feeling healthier. You have to address the emotional wounds, which I think took a long time because I abandoned myself for so long in pursuit of this dream. I remember I was like final two for this US show called Arrow, and I think I was like 58 kilos. And I remember when I was in London trying to audition for something, and I found out that I didn't get it, and I felt I was so thin and so unhappy that I felt kind of apathetic about winning or losing, like when I had heard that I didn't get it. And so I think when that happened, I was like, I really never want to feel or put myself here again to get something I think I want, because the idea was that once I get this thing, I can kind of start rebuilding myself. Once I please others, I can start sort of getting to know and showing myself some kind of kindness, or triumphing or beating this thing, which really was quite an addiction. And then I think when I lost and that kind of didn't work, which I think is a sort of a blessing now, I just thought to myself, I really never want to treat myself like this, so that was a massive sort of challenge for me. But I think it was very much about just confronting like a darkness inside me and learning how to have a conversation with that, because of the things that I wanted, and to try and change that. And I don't think it's easy. I don't think ego is necessarily a bad word, but it has to be moderate, and you have to learn to hold on to yourself in really extreme situations. So I think it's it was really difficult. But yeah, it taught me about what I wanted to succeed in a deeper way, and also how to be more of a friend to myself, which has helped me be more of a friend to others, I think.
Very good. Ellie, before I ask my next question, I just want to say that I really appreciate you being so brave and telling
That's
that full
okay.
story. It's really nice to hear that. It sounds like it's been confronted and you're dealing with it in reality rather than just sweeping it under the carpet. So
No, that's okay. I think it's an important thing to discuss honestly, because it is quite a rampant issue that a lot of people hold in deep secret, so it helps to be honest.
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people are getting a lot out of it. So my next question is, when you were at the depths of your challenges, did you think you had the strength you needed to get through it all?
I remember when I was like feeling that way in London, and I knew that there was a very small part of me that wanted to get well. But I do think, and I don't know, maybe you can. Oh no, you're very much glass half full. I think you are a very positive person. Like you choose the positive way through situations. But I really, for anyone else out there who's kind of not innately positive, I hope this is somewhat of a comfort, but I knew there was part of me that wanted to become well, and I think I was in enough. I want to say this sort of delicately.
Yeah.
I was in so much pain and confusion. I never wanted to feel like that again, and would have done anything to help that. And while it necessarily has taken me 2.5 to 3 years to learn to sort of nourish myself and really confront that and choose a different way when rejection or problems in my life arise. I just it's a real testament to how pain or confusion can be a real teacher in life, like a particularly early life. I think it can and can teach you compassion. But no, to answer your question, I knew there was something strong and kind of brutish about me that wanted to push on in certain environments, but really the massive motivator was how much distress I was in, and probably how much damage I had done to my relationships, to be brutally honest with you, so that was a huge motivator in terms of me trying to become well, because I felt like I just felt like things couldn't get any worse in a way. And on the exterior, everything seemed like it was going really well. I had a film, and I was really getting very close to certain jobs that I thought that I wanted, and I was at like a top tier agency, and things on the exterior looked really good. But yeah, I think it speaks to what I was saying before. You have to feel well in order to what's the word, like derive any kind of personal wealth or like nutrients from your life. It doesn't matter what's going on the outside. You still have to contend with what's going on inside of you, whether you like it or not. So for the most part, I didn't really think I was strong enough to change. And they say in recovering for anorexia, there are like 8 stages. And the first, I wouldn't confidently quote this, but the first 3 or 4 is about wanting to change, like any addiction, wanting to change, but not necessarily knowing how. So there's that quote from King Lear, that's like, by indirection we will direction find. And I very much think about that in referring to my recovery, because it was a process of trying to let go of this huge coping habit, and I didn't, and use relationships and sort of connection in place of that. But I didn't really know how, and I didn't really have the tools to do that. So it felt abrupt and hard and, very grueling, but I just thought I didn't want to. It was a process of realizing the value in being well and falling out of love with being ill, rather than going, I'm going to do this. Do you know what I mean? It was more more of an odyssey, I would say, than like a sort of straightforward thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, like acting in life, just small changes over a long period of time.
Yeah. Like you
Yeah.
say.
Yeah. Now, if you're a wise person and you seem to have gained more wisdom over the last few years, would you like to share any with people who might be in the situation you were in a couple of years ago to help them through it right now?
I think question your, like, if you're dealing with something personal and not feeling very connected to others, I would question your relationships, and I would question the people that you're letting close to you and that you're kind of letting in, and whether they're being, sensitive to you or judicious with the things that are going on inside of you. So whether you have appropriate support. There's an incredible foundation called the Butterfly Foundation, which I used when I was really struggling. And they run very, very low priced kind of workshops for people who, I think they run something called an emerging workshop, where you are starting to embed skills that will help you get out of the situation you're in. And just being in a room with, like, 5 or 6 other people who felt the way I felt made me feel less, what's the word, like less solitary, less separate. I think a lot of disorders and addictions thrive on feelings of being separate in society, not like other people. Lots of mental illness. They arise there when people start thinking that they're different, better, worse than anyone else. So I would say that. I think it really pays to be, and this is trying sometimes, and it feels counterintuitive sometimes, particularly when you're dealing with something like an eating disorder, but to be compassionate towards yourself every step of the way, considering, like, I read this book as a metaphor. It was saying that it's like a Gordian knot, trying to undo sort of the pathways, but you have to be compassionate to yourself in terms of not thinking that you're wholly responsible for the reasons to which you might have an eating disorder. There are millions of variables in that, but also compassionate to yourself in that, like, it's an illness with the highest mortality rate. It's extremely difficult to beat, and to the more that you befriend your emotions, the less the disorder has hold and power over you. So I would say that. But I think more broadly, sort of wisdom in terms of life, I think old friendships are something really to nourish and foster throughout anyone's life. Someone who has a long-term understanding and context on who you are is valuable. They say if you have 3 or 4 really close friends, you're doing incredibly well in your life. If you can't do something that this was helpful to me in COVID, like I couldn't do the thing that I really liked, try and do something for someone else. So I did this volunteering program at the Holdsworth Centre, and I was like, sort of, I wouldn't say looking after her. We just had tea and coffee and chatted and stuff like that. But I used to do like odd jobs for her. But I sort of got to know a woman who had a varied and very interesting life, but she struggled with chronic pain and arthritis, and I think that helped me learn an appreciation of the fact that I had a young, fit and healthy body. And what else? I think, Tim Minchin said this is quite interesting. Empathy is an intuitive trait, but it is something that you can work on intellectually and sort of interpersonally. So, I think listening to different perspectives on things and sort of being very hard on the way you think and consistently questioning the way you think within reason, of course, is such a good thing for a young person to do. I don't know, eat well, play sport, fresh air. I don't know, lots of swims.
Well, I'm sure plenty of people have got plenty out of that. I need to ask you this part about struggles such as eating disorders.
Yeah.
Is there an element of shame, especially in the acting world, that you don't want to be the squeaky wheel? Is there an element of, you talked about being nice earlier, is there an element of not wanting to rock the boat and tell people about your struggles and your vulnerabilities that makes it harder?
I've experienced this in my life. I think a lot I think honesty has a huge impact on people around them. Some people, some people can be quite avoidant or have different responses around honesty or different people's approaches to mental illness. So you have to be sort of sensitive and aware of that some people have a completely different, potentially more closeted way of dealing with things or addressing things or talking about things that are going on inside of them. So sometimes I think when you are trying to talk about things or have a conversation about things, I think particularly when I was younger, because I've more or less been, I'm more sort of quite open about things or wanted to talk about things with people. I've felt like how I'm always like quite deep and kind of prodding with you. I think when I was younger, I felt quite rebuked sometimes in certain situations because people didn't want to disclose themselves to me. But I think, the older you get, the more you think, that's just kind of their way, or it's just like simple boundaries, or people have their own way of navigating their lives. Yeah. But in respect to sort of mental illness, I think it's a very hard game being an actor as it is. And so I think it's hard for anyone to feel like they're losing, and the work is so piecemeal and the chances are so low that you will get ahead. And so I think there's a great deal of shame around feeling depression, anxiety, any kind of mental illness. There's also, because the work is so hard to come by, there is a great deal of shame in terms of speaking up around like discordances in castes or like, I think we've seen that in spades with the sexual harassment cases that have come out in the last couple of years in terms of the theatre world or film sets. There's such shame in rocking the boat or disrupting the flow of things in order to adhere to something that you're feeling, and a sense of, and because of certain power structures, such a sense of an acute sense of, particularly for women, an acute sense of doubt that what they're experiencing is valid. So there is probably maybe an unspoken thing that if you do speak out, or if you are more honest, or in a way that might upset the flow of things or the production values or the production going ahead, that you will be seen, and particularly as a woman, like, kind of more bombastic or untenable or kind of difficult. And I think whilst those things are kind of being more addressed at the, like, more dealt with in a more hands-on way now, it takes time for that confidence to arise. They're still very old systems, and kind of systems of thought ingrained in kind of not saying things or not wanting to speak up. So I think so.
Very true. Well, AIRLIE Dodds, you talked about the importance of old friendships earlier, and
yes,
my life is better because you're one of my old friends. So thank you so much for joining me on Everyday Greatness.
It's been an absolute privilege. I feel like I've just motor mouth the whole time, but no, I had fun. It was good to talk to you, and thank you for those questions. They're very sweet.
Thank you, AIRLIE. Thank you all for listening. Thank you to the ARA Group for being our major sponsor for the 5th year in a row. Thank you to Look Studio Australia for recording this podcast. And I hope that when you all put your device down in a little while, you lift your head up, push your shoulders back, and walk down the street proud of being an everyday Joe or Joanne bag of donuts. I hope you can join us next week, where I'll be speaking to Australian Paralympic silver medalist Ahmed Kelly about how grateful he is for the opportunities to come to Australia after growing up in an orphanage in Baghdad with severe limb deficiencies. I'll speak to Ahmed about how it felt when he had a silver medal placed around his neck at the Tokyo Paralympic Games. I hope you can join us for that one. But in the meantime, if you'd like to find out more about this show, visit our website, everydaygreatness.com.au, or follow us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, or LinkedIn. Thanks again for listening today.